Hi everyone, welcome to my presentation on continuous professional development, and thank you very much for coming. It's an honor to be invited to present at the conference, and I hope you get a lot out of this. You'll see on the opening slide that there's some contact details for me. You'll see that at the end. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions that aren't answered during the presentation. There's also a link there, psa.eu.com/BBELT. On that page, you'll find a download of this presentation, and you'll find quite a lot of links relating to things that I talk about during the next 40 minutes or so. So don't panic if you see something that you wanted to write down and you missed it. Okay, it's all there. I'll give you the link again at the end of the presentation. Just relax and hopefully enjoy yourselves. Okay, let's move on. So this is about helping you. Yeah, it's not about details. It's about strategy, which you can then use in your situation. Yeah. And when I put in the proposal for this presentation to the committee, I did mention that I would be asking a couple of uncomfortable questions. So don't worry when I do. It's all good. I'm not trying to upset anybody, but they're the kinds of questions which we do need to ask ourselves when we're talking about our professional development. If you have any ideas, questions, tips, whatever, please put them in the Q&A thread. Hopefully we'll have enough time at the end to deal with them. Otherwise, like I say, you've got my contact details if you need them. So quick overview, as you can see, like I said, this is an overall strategy type of presentation. So we're going to be looking at planning what you need to do. I'm going to be looking at an idea that I think you might find useful about adopting a framework to build your CPD around. And then we're going to look at managing your CPD and recording your CPD. I think that's really, really important. So moving on. Here's a question for you. Were you prepared for the pandemic? Give you a second to sort of think about that. I mean, obviously nobody was actually expecting the pandemic. Certainly nobody in our business. Nobody had all of their face-to-face courses ready to put online to deliver at a distance. I mean, that's obvious. However, I think since the beginning of this century, everyone has known that being able to use technology in an appropriate way should be a goal for most teachers in our profession, I would say. Blended learning, flipped learning, they've been a thing for much longer, maybe half a century. So, you know, when I ask that question, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. What I'm trying to say is, you know, when we talk about when we think about our CPD, we need to think about what's coming, and not just the now, but the later. And I think people who were looking ahead were developing themselves in that direction. So, you know, maybe you weren't developing yourself in that direction. Maybe you were doing lots of good CPD. You know, have a think about what were you doing? If you weren't doing those things, what kinds of CPD were you doing? And I hope I can show you an approach that will help you to make good decisions about your future CPD, and to do it in what I would call a sustainable way, not the ecologically sustainable way, but in a way that you can keep going, and a profitable way, something that promotes your career and helps you to be ready for the next big thing, the next shock, whatever that may be. Now, obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but we don't know when that will happen or what it will be, and maybe it won't be a big shock. Maybe it will be a slow process, but maybe it'll be VR, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, gamification, something we haven't even heard of yet. Will it just be the normalization of multimodal learning and teaching, i.e., the kind of situation which has had to take place over the last couple of years? But will that become a sort of norm? In some respects, I hope so. I think there were lots of good things about making our teaching multimodal, so face to face and distance. So we don't know, but we can, what we do know is if we don't do anything, we won't be ready for it. So how can we prepare ourselves? So I say this is about you, as I said before. So this is all about approaches, ideas, resources, and the first stage of this is thinking about what needs to be done. And you'll see at the top of this slide it says reflection. This is a sort of a process, sort of fairly standard process diagram that you can see in many books. So reflection is about, where am I? What am I doing? Where do I want to go? Needs analysis. Okay, I know what I want to do. Where I want to go rather. What do I need to do to get there? Then you plan that. You set yourself goals, and the process starts again. And I think reflection and needs analysis are very, very closely tied together. It's you can't do a needs analysis unless you've actually thought about what you want to do, and reflection is really difficult. I find it incredibly difficult sometimes. You'll see textbooks that say reflect, do this and reflect on it, and it's like it's hard. So maybe you need some kind of help with that. Maybe a more experienced, or not even more experienced, but a mentor or a colleague who you can talk these things through. What do I want to do? What can I do? Is a question that we'll look at on the next slide. But there are various frameworks, as you can see on the slide. I'm not going to go into detail. Again, links on the website. I do like the simplicity of the third one. What, so what, now what? So, what's the problem, if you like? So what does that mean? And now what do I do about it? It's a nice, simple approach, but everybody has a different way of doing this. And one of the things that I'm suggesting you should do is to find some kind of reflective approach that works for you. The problem is, this is what we call a chicken and egg situation. If you don't know what you don't know, how can you recognize where you need to go to develop? So the classic chicken and egg, which came first. So you're going to need, part of this will be research, there's lots of information about people who are very expert in this field, who are doing sort of future scanning, looking at the future and saying what may be coming up. Experienced colleagues, professional advisors, people like myself who can help you in that. But the basic message of this part is that there are no fixed CPD pathways out there. There's no linked structured program. So you're going to have to do it yourself. You're going to have to think about what you need to do and find a sort of way of doing it, that a sort of pathway that makes sense. So you're going to need to know, what do you want from your career? Where might you want to go? What interests you? What do you enjoy about it? And what I'm going to suggest to you is that one way of giving this some kind of structure is to look at some published development frameworks, which can be helpful, not only to help you plan, but I would suggest so you can use those frameworks to show evidence of your progression, show where you are, where you're going, where you've been. And that could be really useful to both future employers and also your current employer. Look at what I've done. I think you should pay me more money. That may be naive, but at least it gives you some ammunition for that conversation. So I'm going to show you 3 different frameworks. They've all got their own peculiarities, and again, you know, different people will look at these in different ways, and some of them you like better than others. This is one. There's an organisation in the UK that represents sort of higher education staff, and they have a framework themselves, and you can use this to apply for membership of the organisation. As you can see, it covers 3 areas. Looks relatively uncomplicated at this level, but that does mean that you need to sort of put a lot of the thinking in yourself. It does go a little bit more detail. So if we go back up here to areas of activity, the top one, that's divided then into 5 sub areas. And again, one of those areas, assess and give feedback to learners, is then has a bit more detail again. So you're not left completely on your own, but I think still you would need to look into this in a bit more detail. So it's got that kind of structure for each of those areas. So I like it because it's designed for a whole range of roles. It's not just for teachers. You know, it's meant to be for administrative staff as well. So you might be a DOS, you might be a teacher, you could be a business teacher, you could be a you know, an IELTS teacher, whatever, and it should fit in to where you are. Next one is the British Council framework. This is actually my favourite one, partly because of the colour. It's much more granular, and it also gives you more help with levels. The thing that I think is missing from the HE Advance framework is that it doesn't give you any help with levels. So you can see on this graphic here, I just highlight some stuff for you. So you've got a more or less a sort of 3/4 of a circle, and you've got different areas around the edge. These are the same areas on the right. I've just put them there so they're easier to read for you. What is interesting is that it gives you these different levels. So if I bring that up there, so you start with awareness, you know about it, you then understand it, then you really engage with it, you start using it in a much more productive way, and finally integration. It's just part of what you do. Yeah, you don't need to think about it too much. So I find that aspect of it really, really useful. And one of the other things I like is, if you imagine printing this out, you could then sort of link up. You could say, well, I'm a pretty good lesson plan. I'm already down here somewhere under engagement, but I'm not so good at managing lessons. Maybe I'm at understanding. Sorry. So you could draw lines between these, and it would show you a profile, and that might help you quite a lot to work out where you are in your development. So just get rid of that. And this is broken down again. So for example, setting up activities that support learning by exploiting appropriate digital content, tools, and platforms. So again, it gives you more detail about it, but I particularly like the level aspect over the HE Advanced one. And the final one, the Cambridge framework, is even more detailed. This is just a part of it. Again, it's broken down into 4 areas. So I like that, and it's got some really quite detailed. If you're into language assessment, I think you look at this and you think this looks like a marking grid. These look like descriptors for language assessment. And when you read the details, actually, I think you would agree, has a basic understanding of some language learning concepts, has a reasonable understanding of many language learning concepts, has a good understanding of many language learning concepts, and finally, has a sophisticated understanding of language learning concepts. So yeah, you can see how they've progressed along there. Not too difficult to understand. Obviously, it leaves you to work out what a sophisticated understanding of language learning concepts actually means in practice. But again, I quite like this. It's nice and detailed. It gives you those levels, like the British Council one does, and gives you quite a lot of help in terms of what these things mean. So, moving on to planning. One part of planning is finding out what you can do, what's available to you. You know, it's not possible necessarily for everybody to do all the things available. I mean, you know, I really enjoyed doing a master's degree, but not everybody has that opportunity. I was very lucky. It was the right place and the right time, and I was able to do it. I probably wouldn't be able to do it now, for example. So we need to be a bit creative, a bit imaginative about how we develop ourselves. What are the actual development tools that we're going to use? So on this slide, there's a few obvious and less obvious ones. Depending on where you're listening, Groupon may or may not be a familiar website for you. For those that don't know it, it's a website that allows companies to advertise like special offers, basically, and you can search their website for whatever you're looking for. There's lots of restaurant deals and things like this, and holidays and so on. But there's also loads of stuff like I found a JavaScript course on Groupon. Yeah, it was a decent course, and it cost me £10 or about $12 which certainly in the UK is incredibly cheap. So other things that I've seen on there have been things like marketing. If you're a freelancer, if you're self-employed, you're running a business, and maybe marketing or bookkeeping or social media, those may be courses which really should be part of your professional development and not just strictly focused on language and language teaching. MOOCs, if you don't know what a MOOC is, look it up. Put briefly, it's basically a big online course which is normally free, and which there's limited amounts of teacher interaction. Most of it is all sort of videos and textual and that sort of thing. If you're on a good one, then you'll get people interacting on the chats and that kind of thing. But it's a great way to get into a subject, and I've done quite a lot of MOOCs, and some are great, some are less great, but usually they're free. So that's a really good opportunity. And just organizations, teaching organizations, whatever you're involved with, you might have regional organizations. I know in Russia, for example, many teachers are members of regional language teaching associations, and those organizations sometimes provide development courses, and take advantage of these. Going down under informal, YouTube is awesome. You have to use your critical thinking skills to separate the good and the bad, but there's some really, really good development videos on there, things on all sorts of subjects. I found a fantastic one on blended learning, for example, provided from top institutions sometimes. Just reading, just social media. I'm not a fan of people who say, oh, my professional development is on social media, because I think that's not enough. But I do think it is part of your professional development. So we'll come back to that a little later. But certainly, it's really useful to to be involved in social media. It's such a rich source of information and inspiration, actually. So have a think about that. The other part of planning is organization. I don't suppose anybody would disagree with me when I say, the volume of information that we are confronted with on a daily basis, if we're doing those things, looking at social media and so on, is just huge. And you have to have ways of sort of recording it or coming back to it or filtering it and so on. So if you don't organize yourself, then you'll find yourself being overwhelmed. So you need ways to find relevant information. You need ways to manage that information. I would suggest that you need ways to present current, past, and future development that you have, will, and are doing. So we'll be looking at that in more detail later, but I think this part of it is really, really important. So don't neglect it. And the other thing is setting goals. I think a lot of professional development falters because the person has not really set themselves sensible goals. They say, "Oh, I'll just do some professional development, or I'll learn something about blended learning this year," and then life gets in the way. It's like many things. It's like fitness training. It's like diet. It's about setting a habit and having a goal. You can see some of the tips there. Getting that balance between realistic and challenging, having different aims, short, medium, long term. Not too many goals. I quite like the idea of explaining them to someone else, again, a colleague maybe, and seeing their reaction. Does this make sense? Do they know how much time you have on your hands? Get some feedback on that. And then many of you may be aware of SMART goals. It's been around for quite a long time. There are more complicated approaches, but I like it for its simplicity, really. So you make goals specific, so well defined, measurable, so you know when you've got there, achievable, and realistic, and time-based. So I will do this by this time, and that tends to make them more likely to be achieved. Right, I'm going to go. This is entirely relevant, but this may seem a little bit of a sidetrack. This may be familiar to you. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's been around, as you can see, for a long time. In modern times, it has been, if you look at the bottom layer, it has been suggested that maybe Wi-Fi is the most basic human need. But for the moment, we'll stick with Maslow, and we'll look at it as he first envisaged it. Now, obviously, physiological needs and safety needs are the most fundamental things. If you're not safe and your physical well-being is not protected, quite frankly, we don't need to be talking about continuing professional development, do we? We need to be talking about your own health and safety. So on the assumption that those things are more or less in place, we'll look at some of the higher levels. And the reason why I'm suggesting that this is a relevant thing to look at in this presentation is that one of the very positive things about taking this kind of approach to CPD is about managing stress and mental health and that kind of thing. So stress is generally it comes up in a situation where you have lost control, and by managing your own CPD, by planning what you're going to do, where you're going to go, you take back control, and that can actually make things feel a lot better, and maybe get you to a better position by getting a better job, for example. So we're just going to look at those top three, and I would suggest that putting all this together, the planning that I've already mentioned, the whole CPD strategy, amongst other things, will put you into better positions so that you can take opportunities as they arise. Sometimes planning is most important when you find you have to change it, and you know the consequences of doing that. You were going that way, and you think, oh, there's an opportunity. What would be the consequences of doing that? So this is all part of that planning process. So the love and belonging level, joining peer groups, so online forums, social media groups, LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, etc., whatever is available in your part of the world. Memberships of organizations and societies. Where I am, IATEFL is probably the biggest international English teaching organization. There are, of course, others, but that idea of being within a peer group, and making yourself known, getting to this esteem level where you're being actively involved, where you might decide to mentor somebody once you get the confidence and experience to be able to do that. You might get positive feedback from your interaction with that group. That's a nice feedback loop that can really have a really positive effect on you and your future. And then finally, the self-actualization level. Maybe at that level you're leading a group, on the committee of a special interest group, for example. Maybe you're writing articles, maybe you're doing conference presentations, generally getting as good as you can be. And I think this whole CPD planning process is sort of contributes to that. One of the main reasons I do conference presentations is to develop myself as well as others, and I find it really, really helpful. So I said a while back on this slide, we need ways to keep organized, find information, manage information, and present information. And I'm going to just give you some sort of tips, if you like. These are all tools that I use. I tend to look for long times to get the right tool that I'm looking for, but you may know a better tool or another tool, in which case put it in the Q&A, let everyone know. You might not like these tools, that's fine too, but these are all tools that serve a very specific purpose for me in my CPD. So this first one, Digo and Memex, or Memex, I'm not quite sure, are what they call social bookmarking sites. I use Digo. It's the most established one around at the moment. It's free, looks a bit old-fashioned these days. Memex is much newer. It's only in beta, so it's not even completely developed yet. I think the suggestion is that it's going to cost money, whereas Digo has been free for as long as I've had it, which is quite a long time now. Basically, in your browser you can have bookmarks. Well, Digo and Memex have a kind of much more highly developed bookmarking system. This is part of my Digo page, and the thing that I like most about it is that you can tag things. So you can see on that middle bookmark there what teachers need to know. The tag is education, and I can put multiple tags. So I could have e-publishing, for example, and education. So this means that if you want to come back to these sites, you don't have to remember necessarily what the site was called or even necessarily exactly what was in it. You can look at the tags that you think are relevant and find what you need. However, in recent years, I've started using this software called Tables. It's kind of like Digo, but bigger. So this is just a part of a page from my Tables database, and you can have it just on a single computer, or you can have it online, and then you can share it with multiple computers. So I can see this on my PC, and I can see this on my laptop. And the big difference between Tables and Digo is, let me just put the pointer on, is that it's not just linked to online bookmarks. So this entry in blue with the graphic, as you can see, that's a JPEG, that's an image, and that's on my computer. The entry above it, evaluating digital materials, is a video file. The one below it is a web page, LinkedIn, and all the others below that are web pages. The difference between Digo and Tables is that you can index things on your computer as well as things on the internet. And I find that really, really useful. So as you can see, you can tag. If you're not familiar with the idea of tagging, basically you're giving it a sort of a classification. So the one in blue has got 4 tags: ICT and education, general education, course design, and JPEG, which is something the program did. So I can search for these things with tags rather than with searching for words and so on. I find this really, really useful, and Digo, for material where you find something on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or just browsing one day, and you think, wow, that's interesting, but I haven't got time to read that now. But I reckon that would be really useful to me one day. So you can put it into Table, put it into Digo, and you've kept it. Okay, it hasn't cost you almost any time at all, but you've kept it, and you can go back to it. And I think that's the most important thing for me, is the idea that you can go back to it. A more active way of finding information is finding blogs and websites, podcasts, all that kind of thing that that you can subscribe to. Now, this is a little bit complicated, so I apologize for those who find this easy and they know about it. There's a thing called RSS, and Feeder, which is this is the program, allows you to subscribe to a blog with RSS or a podcast with RSS, and it will automatically download every time something new comes up. So you can see on this podcast, which coincidentally happens to be my podcast, a list of all the episodes that have come up. So you've got other ones here. Obviously, I can't click on this. This is just a screenshot, but this is a translation one at the top, multifarious. So every time that person writes a new blog post, it will appear on that list, and that means you can have a look at it. You can see, is this interesting to me? No. Okay, I'll click read. Something is more interesting, you can read it. Okay, it's a really, really good way of getting information for your professional development. does mean you need to do some research, finding the things that really interest you, the things that are useful to you. But once you've done it, it's a really, it just comes to you. It's just such a nice way of getting the information that might be interesting. Many of you will have heard of OneNote and Evernote. Just a great way. Oops, that went off. Just a great way of making notes. You can integrate web pages, emails. As you can see, I've been doing some planning on this page with a pen, and it's just a great way of keeping a record of notes, or sort of things you think about sometimes. Sometimes it's just like, oh well, that's a good idea, must remember that. You can have it on your phone, or you can have it on a laptop, or you can have it on a PC, and you can make that note in the right place and remember. And for me, I think you can see a theme here, that it's really important. You find good stuff, it's really important to be able to go back and find it again. I assume most people have heard of Twitter. Twitter is sort of, some people love it, some people hate it. Some people like me do both. I find it really, really difficult format to interact with in terms of keeping track of things. And TweetDeck for me is the, see the name down here, is the best way that I've found for organizing the information that I get from Twitter. And so I can have feeds. You can see on the left there, you can set up feeds for the sort of information that's interesting to you. So you filter out the interesting stuff. And again, it needs a bit of research, but once you've done it, it's there. And I've had this set up for years. So again, it's a way of getting the information to you without you having to go out and find it all the time. And say, if you're at all interested in Twitter, I strongly recommend TweetDeck. Zotero, I'll keep short. It's bibliographic software. It's mainly useful if you're likely to be writing academic texts. If you are likely to be, it's something you should be using, or something like it. Mendeley is another one. They're both free. I've been using this since 2005, 2006. So anytime I find something that I might want to use in an academic context, I make sure I save it in Zotero, and then I can use it to do my referencing and to create my bibliography. And like I say, if you don't do that kind of thing, it's probably not worth having compared to the other things I've shown you. Finally, on this slide, it's all very well doing all these things, but it's also really easy to just do it and forget it. And I don't mean literally forget it, but sort of just have no proof that you've done it. And so what I think is really important is to have some way of recording rather, what you've done, all the stuff. Yeah, just a little course, a webinar, you name it. Record it in some way so that you can show current, future employers, whatever, what you've done in your professional development. And one of the ways to do this is an online portfolio, and the best one I've found that's free is called Folio Spaces, and this enables you you can send someone a link and you can say, look, yeah, there's my portfolio, have a look, see how good I am. So I thoroughly recommend doing that. That's probably the most admin heavy part of this, but I think it's a real shame if you do all of that good work and then you have no way of showing people what you've done. So I really strongly recommend this, because at the end of the day, you've developed your pathway, you've done the CPD, you've got a plan, but no one knows. And unless you're going to stay in the same job for the rest of your life, one day you're going to want to show this to an employer. And so I really strongly recommend that that you do use some way. You could do it in Word. You don't have to do it online. I just think this is a really interesting way of doing it that enables you to show people your portfolio of professional development. So we're near the end now. Hooray, they said. And I quite like this. You remember I mentioned Maslow and his hierarchy of needs earlier. I quite like this quote, which is attributed to Maslow, but no one can actually find proof that he ever said it. But that doesn't matter. It's still a great quote. And basically, what it's saying is, your comfort zone is comfortable, but in the long term, not developing yourself is risky. You're unable to control the future, because if you accept the need for CPD, you're saying, I need to be better than I am. I'm not as good as I could be yet. And so you're saying there's a gap which you need to bridge. As you can see, the link to the web page with all the links and the PowerPoint presentation is on that page. There's just a few references, and thank you very much. Again, my contact details and that link once again, just in case you missed it the other 2 times. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you got something out of that, and that that it was useful. Put stuff in the Q&A thread if you haven't already, and with luck, I will be there to deal with those questions on the day. Thanks very much.